And it's done.
Woohoo! Not as done as I thought it would be. But,
Welcome to herding players.
Yeah.
Stupid mysteries.
We will fly to another planet from where we were meant to be.
Have a cup of coffee.
Stuff will not be obvious to us.
Yeah, we went to a bad bar.
It gave me a reason. It gave me a reason for Eli to know that you'd found.
Yeah, it was quite good. It was good.
So it was just like it gave an in for Eli. Gave me a little firefight.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Matt. How did it feel to be on that other side of the table?
Really chilled, to be honest.
Yeah, you're like, this is the most relaxing experience ever.
It's a lot less to keep track of.
Yeah.
There are a couple of moments where I had to pause to work out how on earth am I going to react to this?
Yeah.
Which, I have sympathy for everybody else that I put in those positions.
I mean, I enjoyed the arc of Strat realising he didn't have empathy. It was just like, actually,
I think
everything's much simpler if I just don't worry about anyone else.
I know this new thing about my character that I've not thought about.
I didn't realise it was. I think when I said, he has no conscience, it was a bit extreme. What is mostly just like he's so from far out and not really. Everything is so alien to him. He's just like following whatever. Yeah. And it's not that he has no conscience or cares.
But not
at all.
governed by human laws of compassion and
exactly.
decency.
Yeah, you have no concept of normal.
Yeah.
Everything is normal.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't express in very certain terms displeasure with a thing you've done, you presume it was just fine.
Yeah.
It's just like... I
think it's good. That's a good thing about the way that we do these characters is you do I found that with my character the first time in season 2, act 2. Whatever act it is, I can't remember. Part 2, where I found out things about my character. You find out things about your character as you're playing them and going, oh yes, that's a thing my character can be good at doing, or is a thing my character can do. Speaking of which, my favourite thing was Starkey just unleashing the thunder.
I bring the lightning. Oh, you brought the lightning.
Yeah, you brought the thunder.
You brought the stick.
It was good. It was good.
Speak softly and carry a big stick that can cut people's heads off.
Yeah,
don't call old people old. They know it.
It's ageist. It's just fucking ageist. Dude was a dick and he deserved it. That's my take.
Yeah.
I like that worked out really well, you being the one that can actually use it, because I got a chance once to hit somebody with the thing that I'm supposedly a master with, and all that happened was he caught it and headbutted me. That was great.
I quite like what we've ended up with, where part 1 was quite a lot about the two of them thinking on their feet and trying to stay ahead of situations,
kind of running a lot,
conning people,
they were
running a
just
lot.
bootstrapping, the whole time.
The second season, the second part was all about the abyss and the space weirdness of you and Alex, and this one was much more. There was a lot more firefighting in this part than there was in either of the other two put together.
So I thought there would be less early on, but a lot towards the end. Because if you'd made the choice to jump through, or it's basically the speed at which you come to terms with the fact that you're in a simulation and whether you want to jump through that thing.
Yeah.
But if you'd gone through really early, it would have just made it more about rallying people with this batshit notion. Because I don't know how far sort of Sim has gone into just shaping that world to his will yet. So it's just it made it more rally the troops because the conclave's fucking gone.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Or a lot of it.
Awesome.
So that could have been more of a sort of Armada-ish space battle finale if you'd been there really early and fighting a massive thing in space.
But we went to the pub.
And so we went to the bar on Vesta.
I don't think
that's... way too much time in the rec room.
But most of it was down to some
we paid for that.
really shoddy scope it rolls.
Yeah.
It was just again.
Oh, it's so annoying when that happens.
And I think you're right. It's because scope it out feels like a safe thing to whiff, but it's because you don't want to get into that situation where everyone's just making a scope it roll the same thing. It's just no, you didn't pick up on it, which is really slowing the pace.
we have had that struggle before in other games where it's been like just that not finding out information is actually so crucial to the game having
I'd scried you doing all those things before.
Yeah.
You should have acted on that sooner, probably.
Yeah.
But I guess as characters, we didn't trust you necessarily.
Also, I don't think any of us put together the fact that you were in the corridor and the thing as that's actually this cube.
Yeah.
I had assumed that. Chris had assumed that. I just thought my character has seen this of this person, but I've literally just met her. Why would I go running back?
And it wasn't until you looked, and that was a good character turning point for you. You looked into the abyss, and the abyss told you were in a simulation and you were being simulated, and that's what made you.
That was a big help.
That was
13
huge.
on there is like, I'm just gonna tell you.
Yeah,
thank fuck.
And then Starkey's like, no, this is what I have to do now.
Thanks, Flick.
You had a really clear path of this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And I think I was actually pretty clear about what that path was from the moment I was like, here's all the information I have about what I think. But you're right, I wasn't really in a position to be like, so this is what we should. And I didn't get there until kind of later as well.
I mean, there's a big part of me that was thinking my character could either have been really selfish because there are these machinations in the back of his mind. He could realise that he's not real and think, my God, if we get her through, then I might no longer exist, that I'm done. But then on the other side of that, I think he's actually quite a good guy as well. He's just got these bad ideas. And I think he kind of likes Vikki and he would like to get her home. And if he's not real, then he hasn't got anything to live for anyway.
Yeah, I never really took it as anything he did was evil. More just despondent. Just annoyed with a situation and just wants to do something about it. I think when everything's going right for him, he's probably not starting the dark side. Whereas when it's all going a bit wrong for him, it's I should have been chopping more people's heads off.
I like the idea that actually, in some ways, for Starkey, it almost makes everything fall into place, and you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense out of the kind of way I've been interpreting the universe my whole life. That kind of sense of displacement is all a part of the fact that actually it's not real.
Yeah, I think I'm in two minds about how to handle those kind of information roles in the future.
Yeah.
That it's either you just be more generous, and even on a failure, you find out something, just not as much.
That's going to be helpful.
Because that's kind of what I was trying to do past a certain point. When I realised this is going to keep happening, it's I'm going to give information that means nothing on its own.
Yeah. Or the thing that's kind of encouraged by these kinds of systems, the Monster of the Week, Impulse Drive, Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, is if you roll badly on it, then you still find out the stuff, but you find out the stuff by it finding you.
Yes.
And causing a problem rather than you finding it and getting the drop on it.
Or there being something bad that happens late, the bad thing doesn't have to happen right away. Yeah.
You find, I think some of them phrase it as you get the information, but it's not good for you.
Yeah.
You get a fact, but it's bad. It's not what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But then, in this, pretty much most of the facts I was trying to deliver, not what any of you want to hear. Monster of the Week's a bit different, though, in that, the format of Monster of the Week's very set. You are hunting a monster. There's a thing happening, sort it out. Monster of the Week, the clue's in the name. Mm. And so when it's it finds you, it's that's fine. It's it fits the bill, whereas this has a broader scope in terms of the different types of story you could tell with it. With that comes some floatiness in the rules.
Yeah.
I was having to, over the past couple of weeks, as you and I, Chris, have been talking about it, physically hold myself back from trying to speculate about where you must be taking it.
Yeah, so I tried to only ask questions that wouldn't really wouldn't really hint or ask them in an order where adjacent questions didn't build to useful information.
How much did you know coming into today then, Matt?
I only knew that. So I sent Chris the rough cuts of Parallax converging. So he had, and that kind of helped because that meant you didn't have to ask any directed questions. You could just listen to what happened.
Yeah, so I only listened to the first one and the last one.
Yeah.
Because the last one was really the big one. I just needed to know exactly what situation everyone was in.
So other questions were did I still have Vikki's sheet and the Wren ship sheet and those sorts of things, just about what I still had that you could use. But other than that, you did a damn good job of not giving anything away. And I just had to be don't try to second guess what Chris is going to do.
But largely, I only had the core premise. Uh-huh. Everything else was just, I really do just have to see what happens because there's no point me writing a story.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, obviously you guys came into this in the same way that I came into, me and Alex came into part 2, which is having not heard everything that happened in part 1, and then you get to listen to it afterwards, which is again like what happened with us. I'd listened to it 1 or 2, maybe 2 episodes, I think, by the time we'd recorded it.
So for context, the day we're recording this, only 1 episode of Parallax Converging is out. So
and it is like
which
a
I haven't
slightly
heard
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, so you haven't heard any
So
of
I've heard
it.
all of the first part. I've not heard any of the second part yet. So it's I'm looking forward to
It's
hearing
gonna
the
be
second
really-
part to see how it all fits in.
Which is why it was good to have built into the premise that we knew nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was actually helpful, because I think like me and Alex did find it like Ellie and Dave did a pretty good job of like downloading what happened in part 1, but even so when I was listening to part 1 I was like, oh, okay, this makes so much sense now.
It was interesting when I listened to part 1, and I don't know why, because Matt gave me like a summary of each, but for some reason I just felt like there would be more information in part 1, so that even the players who haven't listened to part 2 coming in would sort of know that this simulation of the galaxy exists. Like, so at least in the metagame, just to steer towards something, and I realised they don't tell you anything in the first one. And so it's just like, so I've only got Vikki and Matt to really piece exactly what's happening together. You can piece like sort of it together, but it was like, okay, I've got fewer tools to work with in trying in exposition terms.
But actually, was it helpful in that sense having a character who could prophesy the future?
Yes.
You were handy. Yeah, that was a handy.
Yeah, the Sage Mystic is like crazy powerful in a way.
Yeah, I mean the scrying, like we kind of fudged a lot.
Yeah.
But I
think it's something
the necessity of
It's
time
also so
limit,
poorly
really
written
helpful.
as well.
I'm interested to see how heavily copy edited that move ends up being in the final edition.
Yeah.
I'm amazed it's not a discharge. I would have thought you'd have to discharge it. Yeah.
In the context of this particular game, like recording it for a season, it was incredibly helpful in furthering that.
But also,
I'm glad it had it.
And that's why
we'd have gone nowhere.
But that's why staring into the abyss is good, because staring into the abyss can give you a similar sort of set.
It's like a minor punished system.
Yes.
And a minor punishment is that the DM has some horrible shit on you to work with.
It's
just
totally.
Yeah, I imagine like if we were doing the full setup that we would do if we were going to run this as a longer
Like a
campaign,
long-term game,
we'd probably have put more thought into like what is the ritual of prophecy, what does it involve,
True.
because we could end up saying like it needs certain things or like it takes time so that you couldn't just
but we haven't got time for that. It needs,
for a one shot that we're trying to fit into 4 hours, it was just like, I'm just going to make up how scrying works.
And that's-
easier.
and
the scribe is just him going,
it is interesting, like you could do an edit, I think, of Impulse Drive for people who are like, no, we want to get through a storyline in 4 hours, for that, if you were doing it for that purpose, because I can really see how some of this stuff plays out in like genuinely interesting ways if you're playing like every couple of weeks for a year.
I think it's built, I mean, in the principles it says think cinematically, so I think it's been built for much larger things, and you can see how it's built.
Epic events.
There is a quick start package which has some like pre-made pre-filled character sheets, like with all the stats already in and like the moves which are taken already marked, so that you can just get going.
In Monster of the Week, I do cut scenes where there's like just things happening where none of the players are, but it requires a very, very disciplined avoidance of the metagame. It's like, you don't know that was just there for some cool shit. It's like, which I'm in two minds about. It works pretty well in narrative terms and gives people some drive, or just sort of a hint where you maybe should steer it without having to just hand it over. But they're odd systems to run, and it's so very different from running a D20 system or a.
Fun though.
It's a hell of a system. It's really good.
And I am really glad that we've done it over 3 parts, because trying to do this game format and the story type justice in one session I just don't think we'd have managed.
I agree.
Yeah, you would never. There's so much going on.
Like, I can totally see how people could, like, I'm already thinking like, we could have done a part 4 of this, right? There's
Maybe.
more, like, there was more to do.
Maybe one day.
No one asked for.
Yeah, it's Pirates of the Caribbean.
I enjoy that was the brief that you had in your head. Like, talking about what you told me beforehand.
I
Like, when
wanted
you
it to
pitched this to me as, like, can I maybe run one? That was what you said.
The one where they fire the director of the first good two.
Yeah.
Still make a third one.
Classic.
That's the...
That is a sci-fi trope, in and of itself.
And it didn't break the game to have two people running the same playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think any more than that, it would be really annoying.
Yeah.
But, like, because you've got
All
two
mystic
subclasses
classes.
in there, as
Yeah.
long as people take the different subclasses, they
Yeah.
feel quite different.
Plus, it was a situation that made sense as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally made it make
I
sense.
can imagine over longer sessions, as you gained more experience and filled in more moves,
You
and
become
your
more-
your
become more
moves
irritating,
converged,
yeah.
it would be you'd overlap a lot more.
But again, that also in that narrative position sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
But
You were different and you played it differently enough as well in terms of like the desires and wants of your character.
I suppose you could sort of like then, if someone's taking scrying, the other person has to take embrace eternity, and that can't be taken away. Like you could maybe like subset some rules there.
So you can like be like, these are your specific skills. Yeah.
Plus, I guess
there are
you
ways.
probably want to limit if it was me running it, I'd want to limit the amount of things like moves you could take. Maybe if there were two people, or
Well, that's why it makes sense in a longer term for it to be like you have to get up to 5 XP before you can have anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 5 again, and then 5 again.
Oh, that's true. Yes, sorry.
Right?
Again, it was so quick.
Yeah,
Although
but it had to be quick.
apparently with the sage.
I mean that.
Although again,
That wise words thing.
Yeah.
That is an XP machine.
Yeah.
yeah, but then it's only an XP machine if people are willing to keep gaming the system. Like, once you realise that that's how it works, it's like, maybe I shouldn't just always ask him for advice, because it's clearly not really as intended, but maybe it is.
But it says every time they ask me for advice, they get advantage.
yeah.
Yes,
There's a
it's
lot.
Kind of like
There's a lot of.
There's a lot in it for you as a player to ask for advice and get an advantage.
But again, in a short session like this, we all have an incentive to all be on the same page and driving towards the
we
same
want
goal.
to be collaborative.
Whereas I imagine in a longer campaign, there'd be more scope to have a bit more
Personal
like
ambition.
other people at odds with you who might not necessarily always take your advice.
I mean, you were all at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And, like, for one session, you kind of get through those things quite fast, but over a campaign, you probably wouldn't bring it up as often.
Yeah, it was interesting, actually, that for the first time, the combination of, like, the hooks and some other things weirdly forced us to be collaborative when the characters didn't actually necessarily work as a team quite as effectively as we've had in other sessions as well, which is,
Yeah, I kind of
all
wanted
interesting
to...
developments.
Didn't want everyone to be buds, really.
Yeah.
Because the other ship option, you would definitely have been Conclave in the simulation.
Yeah.
And that would have changed the vibe a lot as well. That's why I just I have a core premise, and apart from that, we'll see what people pick and see what happens.
Was that how you were you kind of hoping that we would take the Predator one, or were you kind of
I liked the idea of you being picked up by Conclave.
Yeah.
Parallel
Yeah, that
universe
would have
conflict.
been...
It also gave me the option. I can't remember whoever the guy experimented on you was. Like, it gave me the option to have
a version of
alternate.
him.
Like, he's fine.
Yeah, and I'd have worked it out real quickly in that situation. Yeah.
So, like, that would have given a lot of conflict options as well.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, interesting.
But that also might have given you a fleet to bring through Learn It Right, which, would have been a more big fighty ending.
I feel like that might have been less fun for the three of you, though, because I feel like that would have a lot been revolved around, like, me and my experiences from part 2 that would not have been that relevant to you.
sure.
So I
We'd have
think
been a
this
lot-
was,
we'd have
like,
had
this
to-
allowed you to do some fresh stuff.
Yeah, we'd have had to be working hard to convince you that we were trustworthy.
Yeah, and that would have been a lot of it, I think.
Also, we
yeah.
couldn't be quite as rogue
No,
with our actions.
Definitely
Suddenly we'd all
not.
be officers.
You'd
or
have
something.
enjoyed that less.
Yeah. Well, we would have all made it work.
But then again, there were discrepancies in the way the Conclave operated in both universes and the way things generally were, because in my mind, Sim had, once he'd sort of become sentient rather than just an algorithm, had just started making tiny amendments to the simulation so the Conclave couldn't see his escape coming.
Yeah.
And so the simulation is now just running
On its
automatically,
own, yeah.
but with some things changed, so none of the pivotal events of the previous ones happened in the simulation, so the Conclave didn't.
Yes, and it was his ideal
Get wind of it.
simulation. That was the...
Yeah.
So bearing in mind that there might be part 4, What the fuck is Sim?
I mean,
Big space octopus.
right now I don't know.
That's-
He was
He is a
a
sentient
simulation.
manifestation of the simulation that was running the galaxy.
Who knows what he's
Simulation.
made himself out of?
With some sort of reality manipulation powers.
So that we were theorising in part.
And a god complex the
Yeah.
size of himself.
Yes.
Okay.
We were theorising in
It's very
part
big
two
now.
that
Yeah.
because like the Conclave had done experiments on me with proto matter and on Alex as well, and that Sim was all kind of a part of that. The fact that I had some minor like reality bending
Right.
abilities was as a result of
So he's just down a bigger scale.
yeah. And he's almost like a manifestation of that power rather than a person who wields it.
Space.
That was our theory in part two anyway.
Space calamari.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Space octopus!
So yeah, thank you for him. Thank you, Chris, for Eli and Candice.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautifully.
Who were very good value.
Candice,
they were
I enjoyed.
great.
You picked at least one of the two. I preferred bloodthirsty and curious.
Yeah, I
Because I
love
just
that
like,
us.
do you want to shoot that? I've locked it in for you, just in case. Just as
I'd quite like to see what happened if we lasered.
Yeah.
It's like I know no one's asking, but I just like to see what happens if we shot that. So I've taken the liberty.
Look, all of the best science fiction is based on the AI being completely bloodthirsty. So.
Yeah, and thanks for generally running the session.
It was-
And
Yeah. Great job.
Horrible taking over someone else's whole thing. Because
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like,
it's not
oh
different.
no, what if it's shit?
That was a difficult thing to do and you did it well.
Yeah, very well.
very well.
yeah, and thanks Vikki, Starkey, and Strat for coming back.
Always.
Anytime.
So good, man. Good to be back.
Good luck next
My
time, Strat.
yearly annual appearance.
Let's
See
not
you
leave
next
it.
Christmas.
Yeah, see you next December, guys.
Let's not leave it so long next time.
Yeah, I'll see you all again next time.
Ciao.
Maybe you need to run part 4.
Yeah.
It's got work for
Absolutely
you.
not.
Starkey's like, no, hard pass.
No,
Only if you run it as Starkey. That's the only way you're allowed to do it.
Yes, the voice enters my head and tells me I can make my own reality.
Oh my god, yes.
Very interesting proposition.
Part 4 is the Puppet Master. Great.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Merely Roleplayers. You can look us up wherever you find podcasts, on Twitter @merelyroleplay and at facebook.com/merelyroleplayers. Reviews and kind words are all very much appreciated, and we hope you'll join us again for our next episode.